think, Marge. All I need is a title.
Hello YouTube.
Hi everybody!
Hi, Dr. Nick!
Today I'm going to discuss 8 questions that I know for a fact no atheist can answer. So let's begin. The first question is, if morality isn't objective, does that mean that what Hitler did during the Holocaust isn't inherently wrong? But in fact, our actions are just the consequence of nature. Can anyone truly say that what Hitler did wasn't wrong? That it was only nature?
Just because there is no God does not mean that we as humans do not have our own sense of morality or what is right or wrong. One does not exclude the other. To answer your direct point about Hitler, our morality is both multi-layered and subjective. By multi-layered, I mean that we as individuals have our own morality, we as a community have our own morality, and so on up to the morals that we would have as a nation and as the world. Hitler's morality was his and his alone. He then collaborated with like-minded associates to legally seek power in Germany after the failure of the beer hall push in Munich. Upon the death of President Hindenburg, Hitler assumed full control of Germany, but his own moral views still remained centered on himself, his associates, and others who themselves supported those views. The vast populace of Germany simply kept their heads down and went along with Nazi policies as a means of survival, since going against them might get a person shot. Going along with someone you disagree with in order to survive does not reflect your morals. The vast majority of people in the world have come to the conclusion that genocides such as the Holocaust were wrong, but that is by today's moral standards. The Turks carried out a genocide against the Armenians in 1915. The Khmer Rouge carried out a genocide against their own people in the early 1970s. And the Hutu tribe attempted to wipe out the Tutsi tribe in Rwanda in 1994. Each of these incidents of mass killing received a different response depending on the community it happened within and the morals involved in that community and within the world at large.
Question 2. If your meaning to life is subjective and your sense of purpose in life is truly meaningless when you take into account how brief it is in the geological timescale and how the universe will one day be destroyed, why do you try so hard, or why do you hold others to your subjective moral standards? Why do you judge God? Why do you feel the need to judge God?
My meaning in life is not dependent on a God to do anything with me or to me in this life or the next. I give meaning to my own life by existing, by being a good person, a good friend, a good woman, and a benefit to those around me. I give meaning to my life by furthering my own historical and scientific studies so that I can bring this information to others when needed. As for judging God, humans make judgment calls all the time, and it is part of how we survive. The atheist's judgment call on God rests on the fact that he is almost certainly a fiction, based on the contradictions we are told about him in the Bible and in Christian doctrines. I'll leave a link in the description below for a couple of sources that go into this matter further, but suffice it to say that the Christian God is not all-knowing, he can't be omnipotent, and being that he is complicit in some of the commissions of evil acts, he cannot be all good. One of the most basic judgments humans make is about whether something is true or false, and God is not above such judgments.
Question 3. What proof do you have to say that God doesn't exist? To prove that God doesn't exist, you have to have a logical reason as to why the universe came into existence out of the eternal realm of nothingness.
I believe that the standard argument that atheists don't have to prove a negative is correct, but shallow and a little dodgy. But it also does contribute to a more satisfying answer. God does not exist because he is not present within space and time, and there is no demonstrable entity that is able to do this. If God did exist, then we'd be able to see him, or at least detect his presence, somewhere within space and time. The ancient Greeks had supernatural beings too, but at least they could point to Mount Olympus and say, this is where they live. It took the ancient Hebrews and then the Christians and then the Muslims to have the arrogance to say that their God exists everywhere, all at once, which is impossible. They did this, I believe, as a selling point to the pagans at that time, as if to say, oh well, your God lives on that mountain, but our God is everywhere. The universe did not come out of an eternal realm of nothingness. We believe that it originated with the Big Bang, and this is the current standard of scientific belief, until some other theory replaces it with new evidence. The difference is that the Big Bang is an observable thing, a force that we can measure and detect. The Christian God is not.
Question 4. Where and why did the universe pop into existence out of the Big Bang? Where did the multiverse pop out of? If there was no universe made out of space-time, does that mean that the universe just popped out of an eternal realm of nothingness?
Scientists have a theory about where the Big Bang occurred. This was probably done by detecting the redshift of stars as they move with the expansion of the universe, but I could be wrong. Speculation is that the universe will at some point stop expanding and then contract back into a microdot, a theory known as the Big Crunch. Another theory speculates that the process will then repeat itself, and all this will happen over and over through the process of time. Therefore, the basis of your question is faulty. And just because we do not have the concrete answers for how and why the universe was created as it was, does not mean that we can or should pencil in God into those blank spaces after our questions. We don't know how the universe was created, therefore God does not cut it.
Question 5. Where did life come from and how? How do you explain the fine-tuning of the universe? That means that there are hundreds of thousands of conditions that needed to be met so that the universe could come into existence or even support life.
Scientists are still exploring how life began and where. But again, just because we don't know how something came into existence does not mean that you can stick God in as the answer. Life was created, therefore God is not a valid argument. Scientists do know that life began on Earth as single-celled microbes, and the evolutionary development of these microbes into more complex life forms has taken up the bulk of the history of life on this planet. Also, your notion about the universe sustaining life is shaky. You seem to indicate that it would be hard for the universe to support life. However, since the universe is as large as it is, with 10 to the 24th power of numbers of planets in our observable universe, meaning that there's probably many more than this, there is ample opportunities for life to have developed, even given your parameter of hundreds of thousands of conditions necessary to support life. Also, just because our own planet supports life does not mean that there are not other sorts of conditions that would give rise to a different sort of life, perhaps even a higher life form or intelligent life.
Question 6. Why did the first organism need to consume food or energy to survive if it came into existence out of stardust? What drove it to survive?
We have organisms in our world today, such as plankton, that consume sunlight, basically light from a star. Since we don't know everything about life on the planet, much less life in the universe, people are probably not familiar with every mode of food or energy consumption that a life form can utilize. However, none of this is exercised for the existence of a supernatural being. Most things that are not intelligent are driven by instinct to survive. In some cases, this is not something that a creature would have any control over. Intelligent creatures have the ability to develop tools and abilities to make the entire process more efficient. However, again, this does not prove the existence of a supreme being.
Question 7. Where did DNA come from? And how did something so complicated randomly come into existence? It is said that one single DNA cell can hold the equivalent to 4,800 books of information.
DNA evolved over time from a lower form, such as RNA. This is the same process as the single-celled microbes developing over millions of years into more advanced creatures. None of this proves the existence of the Christian God.
Question 8. What evidence is there for the changing of kinds? We all know that there are thousands of species of the same kind of animal, like there are several kinds of dogs and several kinds of cats. But there is nothing in the record of evolution that proves that one kind of animal, like a fish, can ever evolve into a human. Cats are always cats, and humans are always humans. Some people say that because we all share DNA, that we are therefore all related. However, DNA and matter can merely be the mechanism God used to create all animals with, and He made each slightly different. So, DNA and matter can simply be a mechanism used by God, which He used to create all of His creatures, and He made all of us slightly different.
This is an example of pasting God into something scientific to make religion sound more factual. DNA is caused by God for no real reason, apparently. There's all sorts of fossil records that show the evolution of creatures over time, including the development of birds from dinosaurs. Creatures develop new abilities, organs, and so on, to the point that they may become unable to breed with their primitive ancestors. There is nothing in evolution that suggests that a supreme being was involved, and in fact, Christians disparage the notion of evolution while advocating for their own supreme being. Apparently, Jacob Pando asked a 9th question that Godless Cranium didn't see it, but I'll go ahead and answer it for you. Here goes. Question 9. Do we have free will without God? If we are the product of mechanisms which are influenced by the environment around us, do we have free will? With or without either God or nature, humans have free will. The Bible states that Adam and Eve ate from the apple of the tree of knowledge, even though the serpent manipulated them with false promises. Assuming the truth of the story, God did nothing to stop Adam from eating the apple, nor did He stop Eve. God didn't show up until afterwards, when both humans discovered that they were naked and covered themselves. Even when you have a sect of Christianity, such as the Calvinists or the Jehovah's Witnesses, who believe that only a certain chosen few will be saved, the believers aren't the ones making this choice. Therefore, the whole thing actually works both for and against free will. One could say that God predestines whoever is going to be saved, and therefore our free will is worthless. Or one could say that it doesn't really matter whether we believe or not.